An estate agency brand that has exploded out onto the scene on social media is Avocado. You will often see Ian Macbeth running ultra marathons and being on social media more often than me, and that's saying something. But I don't know if you're aware, but Avocado is actually a team. There's two people behind Avocado, and we've already had, as I said, Ian Macbeth on the sofa. But today I'm joined by Mike Robson, who is the co-founder of Avocado, and we're here to talk to him about how he got involved with Avocado, but more importantly, his whole life as an estate agent and before estate agency, to find out what makes him tick, to get a better understanding, so you, ladies and gentlemen, can learn from him. Thanks for joining me today, Mike.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I want you to go back to when you were a child.
Hmm.
Okay, what year were you born?
82.
Okay. As you were growing up in the 80s and early 90s, did you know what you wanted to be?
No, I was your typical kid. And if I wanted to be anything, I wanted to be a footballer, a cricketer, a runner, anything. I don't think anyone really had a good idea. Neither of my parents particularly pushed me down the line of you need to work in the family heritage. So it was a total mystery to me all the way through school, yeah.
So what did your mum and dad do as you were growing up then?
Mum was a part-time teacher. A lot of the family were teachers. And my dad mysteriously worked in an office behind a desk with a computer and no one really knew. And did the same job 35 years at TFAO as a computer manager.
So nothing really stuck with him then, did it?
No.
Hey, sorry. Did you have any brothers and sisters growing up?
Yeah, older brother called Paul, 2 years older than me. Chalk and cheese. Absolute chalk and cheese.
What did your mum and then secondly your dad teach you as you were growing up?
They were both very conservative with a small c. Very careful, classic northern roots, save first, protect yourself first, spend money on yourself second. So very, very careful people, still are to this day.
Whereabouts in the north did they come from?
Whole family's from Darlington.
Okay.
I was born in Huddersfield. We moved down south when I was about 4.
With your dad's job?
Yep, absolutely.
With teachers, they can move around, can't they?
Well, mum was the teacher, so she would just do part-time sort of fill-in work. But he changed jobs to move to the southeast for all the reasons why anyone from the northeast traditionally emigrates down south, for the prospects, for the schooling, for everything that goes with it.
Whilst your dad was working hard, what did your dad actually teach you?
He was the quiet one who would be the protector and look after everyone and make sure. He never said more than three words a week, but when he did speak, it was...
You listened?
Yeah, absolutely. So always very considered, very unemotional, very stoic, but very much you knew that with your dad around, nothing's ever going to go wrong in that sense.
Did you have a good childhood as you were growing up?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I grew up in Wokingham, which has got to be one of the... My bike got stolen in Wokingham yesterday, so I was about to say it's about the safest town in the UK, unless you ride a bike. You could be anywhere, do anything, outside all day, all night, and that was the reason they moved to the commuter belt, because it was an easy place where schools are great, education's great, everything's easy for a kid growing up in a market town like that.
What did your mum teach you?
Mum's a bit different. I'm much more like my mum from top to bottom. We're both left-handed. We're both slim. We look like each other. We act like each other. We talk like each other. My mum was there to just make sure we tried hard, make sure we were looked after, and it's very traditional in that sense that dad was out at the office and mum was much more at home in that way.
What else did she teach you?
Hard to say, because we're now in that place where my mum's retired and I'm now looking after the family. I feel like I've taken dad's role in that sense.
Because you've lost your dad now, haven't you?
Yep, 3 years ago. Yep, right in the cusp of setting up the business and working really, really hard.
How old are you now?
41.
What's it like to lose your dad in your late 30s then?
I think it's going to be hard any time. I think I was lucky enough that he got through to old enough to see having a grandchild, and he set everything up the way it was supposed to be. And someone sent me a card when he died and said, if your dad leaves you in a better place than when he started, he's completed his task as a dad, and you can leave that. And that's absolutely stuck with me. Of he worked his entire life to make sure the next generation and the generation after his family were totally protected, which has allowed me, as in a working life, to take far more risks than he ever did. To take risks like opening an estate agency that looks like no other estate agency in the UK, which could have crashed and burned. We didn't know at the time whether jumping around on social media in a pink hoodie was a good or a bad idea. It just felt right. So that's what I've got from that. And it's losing him at 38 is much better at losing him at 8, but take life as it comes in that way.
Because I know you're married to Victoria, and you've got a son called Miles. So did Miles? He was 3 years old when he passed away, was he? So
Yep.
So yeah, you got to know his granddad, but obviously not
not deeply. He's got good memories of him. So he's a kid who's got an unbelievable memory in that sense. Yeah.
Does your mum still live around the Wokingham area then?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
2 miles down the road from us. Yeah.
So you went to secondary school. Good secondary school. Did you know what you wanted to do then?
No, absolutely no idea. I felt there was one thing within secondary school, which was no one ever really helped in trying to associate what you were learning in school to what you could do with it in later life. And I still feel that now about schooling.
So did you do A levels or?
I did. I went on to do college. I did my A levels.
Is that kind of because everyone else was doing it? So you
absolutely, thought... yeah. I'd kind of checked out. I had a part-time job when I was at college, and I would drive to work, do a few hours work, and just take a couple of hours off work to go to college, rather than the other way round. I'd already figured out that making money on a weekly basis was slightly better for me to learn in that way than it was to be in college.
And then you went to university again. Was that just a kind of, we're on the treadmill, can't get off the escalator? Yeah, I think that's a good one. You're on the escalator.
It's the next logical step. My brother had been to uni. All my friends went to uni, bar maybe one. So I found a course that I thought would like.
What was that?
Gave it a go. It was an economics course in Manchester. Because I'm interested in business. I'm interested in how money works. I went and met the lecturer, who promised me it wouldn't be maths based, and the day I turned up I had 16 hours a week of quadratics. So it didn't last long.
Did you drop out in the first year?
I did. First term.
What did your mum and dad say when you dropped out of uni?
My dad was disappointed in it, which ironically he was the one who didn't have a degree, and mum does.
Were you the first from your family to go to university?
No,
of course,
my brother graduated. My mum graduated. I've got.
Yeah, but
was your university family.
Was your brother golden bollocks and?
Maybe at the time, yeah. But from my point of view, I wanted to make the decision hard and fast rather than drag it out for 2 years and really waste my time.
So once you dropped out, what did you go and do then?
Just dropped into working in retail, and
because it was a job and you need to pay the wages.
Needed a job.
Back home.
Yeah, moved straight back home. Gave my parents back the money that they'd given me for the accommodation and living for the few months that I was there, because it was wasted money, and got a job the next week. The first place I found.
How do you save that money? Because you've been working at college, so you build up a bit of a fund.
Yeah. So I don't feel like I don't believe in ever sort of owing anyone a debt in that way. So just paid them straight out to work. And I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed retail. Got to do a lot of the sales management, a lot of the merchandising training, and that led me to becoming an estate agent eventually.
When did you see the light?
One of my best friends worked in estate agency, and this is cliched, but he drove the car that I wanted at the time, and he told me how easy it was. And then a couple of weeks later, a branch manager of a local estate agent walked into where I was working. I sold him about £800 worth of clothes, shoes and accessories, and he said, you should be an estate agent, because you've literally just metaphorically pulled my pants down whilst pulling them up.
I must admit, I went to a restaurant recently, and normally like to spend about 50 quid on a bottle of wine, and the guy sold me a bottle of wine for 150 quid, which is a lot of money.
Yeah.
Okay, and it was worth spending that extra 100 quid just to see how well I was sold to.
Yeah.
It's a rare gift nowadays, isn't it?
Yeah, I think
Especially
so.
with
Yeah, yeah.
youngsters.
This is it was something that was drilled into me in certain places about how you could match things, how you could pair things, how you could cross sell to people. And this guy just walked in and was like, "This is how much you're getting paid. What's your prospects here? You can do exactly what you do in an industry and do better out of it, and it's more of a lifetime career."
And did you go and work for that person then?
I went for an interview with that person, worked for his firm. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, and which firm was that?
Prospect Estate Agents. Yeah.
And whereabouts was that? Was that in Wokingham or Reading?
Kicked off in Reading, and then went to my hometown in Wokingham about 4 months later.
Did you enjoy it?
I had a love-hate relationship with it. It was a very, very, and it still is, I believe. It was a 6 office company. It was very aggressive, but the basics that I learnt in that business, and the very well-run businesses that you can learn in will always stick with me. Some still stand, some I feel now are outdated, and we've changed and we've moved with the industry, but the pace that you work at and the commitment that you give and the levels that you're expected to achieve will never leave.
What did you love about estate agency? Then the follow-up question is, what did you, at the time when you were working for Prospect, nothing against the firm, but just the agent, what did you didn't like about being an estate agent at the time?
I worked predominantly in lettings, and I loved the instant result of being able to connect one thing, someone be happy with what you've done, and then you get paid for doing that at the end of the month. So I saw it as a very direct, very A to B, very black and white. If I do this well, I get that. And in the meantime, someone's happy that I've done it for them. So there's a win-win all the way through.
Do you crave other people's acceptance and that you've done a good job, and basically people blowing smoke up your backside?
I don't crave it. No, I'm
Did you
quite
at the time?
No, I've always been quite self-aware and quite self-assured that if my opinion doesn't suit someone else, I won't change it. It's my opinion. I've got it for a reason, and I like doing something well. And if you've produced something for someone else that provides a good result, well, that's a byproduct of it all being well done.
Why do you think you were attracted to lettings?
Um,
Because if you don't mind me saying, an estate agency, most estate agents get the thrill from getting the listing, not
Yeah.
necessarily the sale.
I wasn't attracted to lettings. I was put in lettings.
Do you think that was the right thing for you to do at the time?
It was the right thing to learn both. I prefer the aspect of lettings of the faster result and having total control than I do in the sales market. But later on in my career, I was called a sales agent in a.
Do you crave to be in control?
No, not at all.
But you like to be in control?
Of myself? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
How do you square that with not being in control of A, your business partner, and B, you're a self-employed estate agent running a decent brand? And again, I know we're going off script here, but I think it's just, I like to go down. This is why we have these chats. Is one of the biggest things that self-employed estate agency bosses do is that they can't tell people what to do.
I think it comes with a bit of age and maturity. And Ian and I jumped into this business with slightly differing goals. I will never be able to control Ian, and I don't want to control Ian because he would be 50% of the person that he is.
Because when Ian was on this sofa, I said, how did you and Mike actually get together? And it was just kind of, well, I kind of knew him and I liked him, so we thought we'd go into business. But you wouldn't do that with a marriage, would you? And they say,
Yeah, it was a strange way to get in business with someone that you haven't spoken to for 7 or 8 years. And even when you had spoken to them, it had only really been fleeting. It had been a mutual respect. We'd never worked in the same office. We'd never worked together. We just worked within the same company and mutually respected each other at that time. Yeah.
There is like a Venn diagram. There is a bit of a crossover, but there is definitely I love to see you both in action. I've seen you at a couple of shows where you've both been there. There is a certain yin and yang between, with you.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're totally different people. But and it probably wouldn't have worked 10 years ago or 15 years ago because egos were bigger. Points to prove were bigger, different things. Now we know that we need each other because there's certain things that I can do that he's got no interest in. There's certain things that he can do which I've got no interest in or no skill in. So we complement each other like that.
Because he's very much a person that's out there. My experience with you is over the years is that you wouldn't be talking to me about whether I should do a certain type of video or another type of video. You'd be actually quizzing me on stats and spreadsheets and stuff like that.
Being out there is an adopted behaviour for me. At the beginning of the business, we both did our disc profiles and we sat down and we discussed who we were as people, and we do the same with people that we employ, and we do the same with some of our partners as well. So we have a good understanding of who are you naturally and how do you change yourself.
Are you
at work?
A CD, DC?
I'm it's analytical and directorial, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, just Google disc profile. It's 4 letters, D, I, S, and C. D is dominant, I is influential, S is steady, and C is conscientious.
You'd be surprised to know that Ian's I is almost entirely manipulated for work. When he goes home, he doesn't speak to a soul, apart from his wife and kids.
Yeah, I can see that. And I think that's an important lesson for us all on social media is you have to be truthful and you have to be real and genuine, but that doesn't mean that, you have to be like that at home, as long as you are truthful to yourself.
No, absolutely.
Well, you've got to be a bit weird, haven't you, to do probably 50-mile ultra marathons, haven't you?
I can't explain that. I've got no answers for anyone who will run 100 miles in a day, but it's been done.
Hey,
I've seen his feet. It's not something that you can explain.
I find driving 100 miles hard work. Running it.
Next time you interview him, he will run here. It could happen.
That would be interesting. So you were working at Prospect. You were there till 2011. You started as a neg and worked all the way up.
Yep.
Can you remember your first valuation?
I can.
We always remember our first, don't we?
Yeah. Boss went away for a week. I was just chucked in. And listed a couple of houses, and that was it. I was away.
So why in 2011 did you go to Dubai?
I was 28 and I don't know, one of the earliest midlife crises you've ever seen, I guess. I had a couple of properties. Were you with your partner? No, I was single. I had a couple of properties. From a financial point of view, I was doing really, really well. I was getting well paid. Essentially, I'd done the same job for 6 years running. There wasn't any progression within the business that I was in. It was, you're the manager of that branch. There's 2 other branches. They've got managers. Everything's going well. We pay you well. No need to change it. But I had a nag that I needed to do something else.
You had a scratch that needed itching.
Yeah. And I felt at the time, given where the world was in 2011, I would need a fortune to start my own business, and I wasn't ready, and I'd never had the confidence to do it on my own.
So you went to Dubai. What was Dubai like?
For the first 2 weeks, it's probably the best place I've ever been.
Let me guess. No work and party.
No, I jumped straight into work, and for 2 weeks I thought, this is brilliant. I can do this. I made really good commissions within 2 weeks, and then it's very much a buy. It's finding the buyers, isn't it? That's the hard bit. It's the Wild West. You've got you're listing a property with maybe 50 other agents, multiple agent, and you get paid by the buyer or the tenant rather than paid by the owner. So the owner's got no loyalty to you. So it's a dog eat dog world. It's a great way to learn how easy the English estate agency market is. Is that what you learned? It's one of the things I learned. Yeah, I joined a company that had 35 people, all on commission only. Everyone was working hard. It was a very young company, and they were working things out. but I joined almost trying to escape something in the UK, and I was almost looking for their faults. And now I own a business which has got about 35 self-employed estate agents. I can see everything that they were doing was going in the right direction, but sometimes you're building the plane as you're flying it.
And you can see that now
Yeah,
through hindsight. And isn't hindsight a beautiful
I'm
thing?
super intelligent with hindsight. At the time, I would have come across as negative because I'd be pointing out that doesn't work properly, that's not right, that's not right. And I'm sure they didn't need telling because they run an incredibly successful business now. They didn't need me telling them what was
Well,
right and wrong.
again, let's just save everyone's time, save them looking at LinkedIn. It was Allsop and Allsop. Well, I
Yeah,
mean, they're the daddies now, aren't they?
600 odd agents. Phenomenal. Yeah, absolutely incredible.
So you were Mr. Negative, pointing
Mhm.
out things. Do you think you could have done that in a better way?
Yeah, but I didn't know how to at the time.
Okay.
Just I wasn't a good communicator, and I think that was a product of 6 years in an aggressive company where unless you're aggressive, you're not heard. So I walked in, having only worked really at that place, almost with the same attitude, like
So
I
you'd
know everything,
so
and I knew nothing about it.
you'd come from Berkshire, where you were a big swinging dick
Yeah,
at one of the big firms, because Prospect at the time were.
yeah,
I know they're not as strong as they used to be, but at the time
they're a good
they were.
business still. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
So you were bored. You went to Dubai. How long did you last in Dubai?
Working 6 or 7 months.
Okay. What made you come back?
Um, I took 3 or 4 months out, did some traveling, packed.
Do you regret going to Dubai?
No, it's the
Did you
best
at the
thing I've ever
time?
done.
Did you at the time?
Even at the time, I didn't regret it because I didn't lose anything from going. All I did was learn lessons about what I was bad at, lessons about what I couldn't do, and where I needed to just belt up and be better.
Because a lot of people would fit in. It's like setting up your own self-employed estate agency. Some people are afraid to do it because they don't want
Mm,
to look foolish in front of their
yeah,
colleagues that if
yeah,
they fail.
yeah.
You didn't see it as failure. You saw it as a lesson.
It taught me a massive lesson that I wasn't as good as I thought I was. I wasn't very good at communicating. I needed to be more positive about how if I'm managing upwards, that's the biggest skill you can ever have is managing upwards, not just telling someone what you think, because if they own a business, then frankly,
What
it's
would your
how they
tips
go.
be for managing upwards?
You need to know why, if you need something, why it's good for the people who own the business.
Indeed, indeed. I
So you've
can't.
got to see their point of view.
So you came back to sunny Romans.
I did. Yeah, on leaving Prospect, I'd received a letter from Peter Fuller, who was the MD at the time, saying, "Congratulations on moving to Dubai. All the best with it. And if you ever, when you ever come back, there's a seat in my business guaranteed." And I just thought that was the classiest thing I'd ever seen.
A proper letter
Yep,
sent to your home.
yep,
Did they know your address at the time, or they
yeah,
just found it?
yeah. There was 3 or 4 directors at that time who knew everything. There was Peter, Vince, and Dale, and they knew everything about everything in the local market. So yeah, letter addressed to my house, hand signed. If you ever come
Classy.
back, there's a seat in any office. We'll find one for you. So when I quit in Dubai, I did 3 or 4 months worth of traveling, and around about Christmas, just picked up the phone from Cambodia or something and said, "I'm coming back in January. You wrote me a letter. Can I start?" And they said, "What date?" So that's another big lesson in career is those little touches that you can
It's
that
the
you can
little
leave with
things in
people.
life.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ironically, he's one of my neighbours now, so it's lucky that we get on.
yeah. It's funny. One of my best area managers. You know, how many times has an area manager given you a bonus? But yeah, I was watching Pink Floyd at Live 8, and he brought me the CD.
Yeah,
It sticks with me
knowing
today.
just knowing something about someone rather than doing
Yeah.
the basic £6 bottle of prosecco is
Oh,
is is
shit in it.
huge. Yeah.
At the time, Romans were they bought out by the old
No,
guy?
it was still a 20 odd branch independent, run very much by Dale Norton when I started. Yeah.
So it could have been many years before the venture capitalists came in and bought them.
No, I think I did about a year before Dale sold out. Yeah.
Did things change?
Yes, in my opinion.
Good and bad?
Great for the business, not great for me personally.
Why not?
My first week at Romans, I was in office. Second week, I did a week in an induction, and Dale burst through the door, pointed at me and said, "Mike, you're the guy who just listed 10 houses in the Reading office. You'll do well here." And then just left. He knew exactly who I was before I knew who he was. And again, the same signal I had from Peter Fuller, that this is a business where the person who owns the business knows every single person before they've even met them. They know top to bottom everything that they're doing. This is a really, really well run, tight ship. And I felt that in branch you were heard, you were listened to, because that's where the fee earning was done. When the money came in, then came the acquisitions, then came, in my opinion, the offices were watered down, and it was very much head office run rather than branch centric. That's my opinion. You can't say it was done badly, because they've gone from an 18 office business to a 300 branch super corporate. So it depends who you're talking to, and you talk to the CEO of Romans, I'm sure they say they're doing really well, and I wouldn't mind being a pound behind them.
I was only talking to Michael last week. That's so impressive. Good chap, actually. But again, things change. I used to work for Belvoir, and things changed when they went PLC.
Yeah.
But you can't always be that family. You know, there's a very large self-employed estate agency model where some people who joined it early days said, well, that family feel has changed. But things do change in life, don't they?
It will. Yeah. Yeah. Progress is progress, and it's good for some, not for others.
Who knows? Someone might buy you out in a few years' time. It might change as well. Who knows?
Indeed.
You were at Leaders in branch till 2018. You joined them in 2012, and then you got moved to head office to run their that investment arm. What was all that about?
I was a really, really top performing branch manager within Romans, and eventually I got, again, tired of doing the same thing, and they announced that they were...
Do you get bored easily?
I need something happening. Yeah, I don't like. I feel like somewhere there's a little bit of a self-destruct button, and if it's too easy, I'll try and find something to make it a little bit more.
So you self-sabotage?
Potentially. But I look now, I recognise it, and I'll look for a positive thing to do. Look to add.
Because again, just jumping ahead, you know, not only Avocado got a great network of self-employed agents, you've been buying surveying firms and other stuff like that. And I was fearful at the time that you were getting bored. I see it all the time. Great people getting bored. So they either drink themselves to death, put drugs inside them, or they go and become a prop tech guru. Or become a coach. You're starting businesses.
I don't drink or smoke. I don't do prop tech. What was the other one?
Surely you can set up your own CRM like all the other buggers.
I don't have the technical expertise. I'll leave that to someone else to program a CRM. I think building a CRM is got to be the hardest thing in the world, because you're building it in your own vision of what's a good idea. And everybody else will find a hole, because everyone's got their own idea of how it should work. No one can have the perfect CRM, unfortunately.
Okay, so let's come back. You got moved to head office.
Yes.
Okay. Were you told to go, or was that something you applied for?
I applied for it.
Because you were bored and you thought to yourself, I can go next cog up.
I'd reached a point where my wife had just had a major operation. And then quite shortly afterwards...
Was she an agent?
She was a property manager, yeah.
In Romans?
Yeah.
Did you meet there then?
We met at Prospect.
I love that.
Ironically. And then we, a bit like Ian, didn't speak for a few years, and then met again at Romans and ended up getting married.
Spark was that? There you go.
Yeah.
And you've had a son, haven't you? Since
we have.
Then?
Yep. So I felt like I was running into a really real bit of problems where she had a really big health condition, a massive operation on the result of it, and then she was pregnant, and the prospect of me working 8 till 7 Monday to Friday, 9 till 5 every other Saturday, was unsustainable, because she still had to work as well from a financial point of view where we were. So I had to change something, because I didn't want to be, and I didn't understand, I still don't understand how estate agents are parents in the 2020s. Because that's what I learned partly from my dad. I didn't want to be out the door at 7 and in the door at 7 and be...
And say 3 words a day.
Yeah, I needed to be more involved, because that's what people are now. It's co-parenting. It's not just mum or just dad.
So you went to work for the private investment arm of Romans.
Yep.
You enjoy it?
It didn't work. Short story. It was a department of me and a director. He was brought in by a CEO who left very, very quickly. It wasn't funded. There was no marketing budget. And it was doomed to fail. So they canned it.
I blamed you.
I don't think anyone was blamed. I think everybody knew it was go in, have a go at this, but if you're not going to market it, you're not going to support it, then it's a bit of a road to nowhere.
So you left and went to work for Hodders. Back to lettings, back to your core.
Yep.
Decent firm, Hodders.
Really nice people. I couldn't say anything better. Just Chris and Paul, just really nice guys, just trying to run a good business. And I drove through Addleston the other day, and they still have absolute board domination in that town. So I like to see them doing really, really well. I chose a small business because the reverse opposite of Romans, where you're just a small cog in a big machine, in a small box being your silo. You have to run everything.
What did you learn going back to it's a one branch operation?
There were 2, yeah.
2.
Yeah.
What did you learn by being in a small office like that? Big fish, small pond.
Yeah, absolutely. But I wanted to know more about the mechanics of the finances of a business, all the way through the client accounting, the property management arm, and have an oversee of absolutely everything, because I still had aspirations to run my own business.
Well,
and
that's
a great way to train is to run someone else's.
That was my next question. When did that spark of wanting to be your own boss, when did that kick in? Or has it always been there from day one?
As soon as I became experienced in estate agency, I felt like I could run an estate agency as well as anyone.
There's plenty of people watching this who have that spark and will do nothing about it until they get to the age of 67. If you hadn't have met Ian, is there a chance that you still could have been at Hodders now?
I went there with the intention that I could potentially take equity later on down the line, because they're a little bit older than me, the guys who own it. They were looking for someone to run the business. So I had that. I had an eye on whether I could take equity in their firm rather than start my own.
There goes.
Because again, we're looking 8-9 years ago. It was still a case where you would probably need £150,000 plus to start your own business by opening a branch with windows and doors.
So just to confirm, you saw that as a way of being your own boss, but by joining an existing firm.
Yeah, potentially to take equity in the business if they allowed it. It was a good project for me at the time, because they'd just closed an office to bring their lettings together. They'd gone from having a director and 2 managers just to 1 manager. So it was repairing something, bringing it back and making it better. But
so who called who first?
Ian messaged me.
What, they even picked the bloody phone up?
LinkedIn, it's a wonderful place. He probably didn't have my phone number. That's how close we weren't. In that sense, he just messaged me saying, "I've seen you change jobs, saw you left Romans a little while ago." I think the line was, "Have you ever thought about running your own business?" And I was already looking at what I was going to do next.
I bet he sent that to everyone.
Maybe.
I don't want to feel you feel
No, you've got to throw a net out, right? Like, I'm not. I don't have I'm sure I
You'll
wasn't
never
the
admit
first
it.
person. I'm sure I wasn't the first person he messaged, because why would he message someone who he hasn't spoken to for 8 years? What I know is that he took some great advice, which was don't go into business with someone who you trained or someone that you work with.
I like that because they're just like a mini me. So like,
Absolutely. Yeah, what's the point in just having a watered down version of yourself? Because they'll just say yes to you. You'll just be their boss for the rest of the life.
it took me a while to realize the power of, the sum is greater than the parts.
Yeah,
When you're two of you going into business, that means you've got two mouths to feed, not just one.
yeah.
Why, why do you think, I have asked Ian this, but I'm asking you, why do you think Ian felt he needed to go into business with someone?
Um, I think like I said earlier, he's like I am, old enough and mature enough to accept that you don't know everything, and he knows or knew very little about the rental market. He wasn't qualified to do it. Didn't potentially have the time to set up a lettings business with all the compliance that goes around it, whilst doing 46 videos a week.
Yes, because the person that normally is very good at the marketing and the big blue sky thinking is truly atrocious at the processes.
That's the great difference between a lettings and a salesperson, right? A true salesman will tend to do the deal and just leave
A trail
a
of
trail behind them, whereas a lettings person will be very process driven, and that's a little bit learnt with me, but still, it's truthful.
So you met up,
Hmm.
married at the time.
Yep.
What did you say to Victoria once you'd met him for the first time?
I said I've just had a beer with Ian, and
Did she know who he was?
yeah, absolutely, yeah, yeah. She worked for Prospect all at the same time that Ian had been there. Um, he came with his reputation because he'd been the MD at Prospect with a higher fire mentality. And I said, look, I've met him. He wants to do this, and I really want to do it. And she played a very risky game with me and said, I bet you don't. Almost to dare me to do it, because she knew I would never really be that happy as a sales manager, lettings manager in branch. She didn't want me working Saturdays till 7 o'clock. So
Do you think she knew that you weren't particularly happy?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So what does Victoria bring to the household that you don't?
Um, she is much more of a social glue than I am. I'm a little bit prickly. Some people don't know how to take me because I'm very black and white. My opinion comes a little bit
That comes
before
from,
me,
but that comes from your dad, doesn't it?
potentially. Yeah, yeah. She's Miles's mum. She's not career focused. She just wants us to build a family unit and do it and do it right. And she's there to promote that we're happy first and foremost, over money, over anything else.
What advice would you give to anyone watching this, thinking of starting their own business, about how to bring your partner on board?
They have to want you to do it. They have to want you to do it as much as, if not more than you want to do it. Because for a period, Victoria and Rael, Ian's wife, became the main earners in the household, working hard, doing everything while we were effectively blowing the family savings on paying to go to work and sometimes not coming home till 1 in the morning. We had an agreement and said for 2 years it's going to be really, really hard. It's going to take a lot of money. It's going to take a lot of our hours, and we will come down the other side of it because we have a plan. But anyone who starts a business, anyone who goes self-employed, if your partner is not on board, I would say 99 times out of 100 it won't work, because they will start questioning whether you're making the right decision. They'll start questioning why you're putting money into adverts rather than
Putting food on the table.
absolutely, yeah.
Was there ever a point in those 2 years where you thought to yourself, shit, we've made the wrong decision?
Yes.
When was that?
Around the time where the company money was running down to zero and the pipeline was going up, at an equally fast rate, but we weren't being paid. And I've seen it time and time again with the self-employed agents. There is a period of absolute elation. This is amazing. I'm listing properties and no one's telling me what to do. And then this is really hard. And then this is a panic moment. And then you come out of it the other end. It's a really typical wave that we see. And I went through it. Sleepless nights of...
You had a fat pipeline, but at the end of the day, you had no money.
Yeah. You have to rationalise it in your head. I'm down to my last few £1,000s here, but we've got 100 sat there ready to pay out, and it does.
How would you do things differently with what you know now about that, just to help the ladies and gentlemen watching this?
I think what we did do well was we spent money on business coaching, and we surrounded ourselves, and people actually willingly came to us from outside of the industry. I can see what you're doing. You're doing a really good thing. How's it going? And we built a new community around us, and I would do that again. What would we do differently? Not a lot, to be honest. There's always individual things. We've wasted money and we've tested things, and those things we've all learnt from, which hopefully we can pass those lessons on to people who join us or people we speak to about how we spent £20,000 on a marketing exercise that yielded absolutely nothing.
20 grand lesson, isn't it?
It's a big lesson, yeah, granted, but now anyone who starts their own agency, I can tell them, well, this is why it didn't work for us. You choose your own road, but that's our learnings.
You're now out on the other side. You've got momentum, you've got a survey network, you've got a bunch of planners, mortgages, things, so that sort of thing. How do you ensure that the core product, which is the estate agency self-employed model, is running okay whilst you've got focus on all the other things? Or is it because there's two of you, you can do that?
Avocado is my full-time job. The survey network, the mortgage tribe have their own equity holding directors. We just happen to be shareholders in those businesses. So we've got the benefit of, we've got a marketing team in our head office. We've got call handling service. We've got accounting. We've got bookkeeping. So we can start businesses, and we've got an incredibly big database, 40 odd brilliant estate agents. So we start a survey business. Week one, we can have that diary filled, because we'll have the support of the agency business. But I'm not a surveyor. I don't run the surveying business. I'm not a mortgage broker. I don't want to be a mortgage broker. But we can start those businesses. We can support them through their initial phase, make use of all those services that we already have with an amazing amount of efficiency.
Where do you get your kicks from running Avocado? Is it the money?
No.
Is it what the money buys?
Um,
Or is it the thrill of the chase? Or something else?
I've always felt like I could do this, and it's incredibly affirming to see it come out, and to do it in what I feel is the right way as well. So I'm wearing my pink hoodie today.
You're always wearing your pink. How many of them have you got?
I've got 4. Almost one. I've got black ones, so I've got one for every day of the week. I went to the services on the M1 this morning. I don't know where I was, somewhere north of Stevenage. And as I pulled into the car park, I saw someone standing outside looking at me. I got out the car, walked towards him, and he was it was a mortgage broker who just wanted to have a chat. He reckoned I'm 100 miles from home, because he's watched the podcast and he enjoys our marketing and there's no way, if we'd have done it a different way, you wouldn't have that kind of good reputation and goodwill, which I don't think there's that many estate agents who have goodwill with the public or associated services in the industry. Yeah.
That is quite unique, isn't it?
I think so, yeah, because I grew up in businesses that were dog eat dog, competitive, where you were taught not to speak to the opposition.
What I'd like to do in some next videos is talk about the future of Avocado, talk about all the things we've talked about personal branding, talking about videos and collaboration. So if you're up for that, let's leave the chat now.
Yep.
I want to thank you for telling us your story so far. I'm sure there's going to be another chapter. It will fill another 3/4 of an hour in a few years' time. But thank you for your time today, Mike. It's been
Pleasure.
really good. Thank you.